really looking forward to this one because we're about to take a trip back in time. The cars of yesteryear are hitting the track, driven by some of the legends of Australian motorsport. They've got a very special place in our history. Here's Aaron Noonan with more.
Well, some come to the Super GP for the V8 supercars, others come for the weather, and some come for the girls. But this year, we've added something new. It's the Pertec Australian Legends category. We're celebrating 50 years of championship touring car racing in Australia. We've grabbed some of the legendary cars and the men who raced them and let them loose around the streets of Surfers Paradise. Yeah. 25 years on, is green stuff still tough?
It is really tough, mate, I tell you. It's a real buzz to drive that thing because it still revs hard. It even stops good. It's a really great car.
It was the V8 supercar of 1984. Do you reckon these blokes, your young fella Stephen, in the modern number 17 Falcon's got it just a bit too easy?
Well, I don't know whether he's got it too easy or not, but I can't wait to see him to tell him that I was 15 seconds a lap faster than him.
Does it bring back some ripper memories of a great era? That was the end of Group C.
Well, it was the end of Group C, but at the end of the day, I think you'll find that was the real beginning of V8 supercars.
This was the start of the Group A era with the 635 BMW. You won 7 out of 10 races in the championship in 85. You were just a bit greedy, weren't you?
Well, we were, but the fortunate thing about it was that we already had a ready-made race car because they were running this exact car in Europe as a race car, where the local cars had to actually build their cars from scratch. So we had an advantage in 85 for sure.
Does it feel like it felt in 85, 86, or have things moved a bit?
Listen, the only thing that feels different, and you wondered about yourself, is the fact that we didn't have power steer those days. Now nearly everything you drive has got power steer. So you think to yourself, God, how did we drive these? The steering's so heavy. But when you drive them around for a lap or so, you get used to it.
There's plenty of legends here this weekend, Colin. It must be fantastic to bring back so many memories.
Well, it is, and the cars are great motor cars as well. Obviously, this particular car we're driving, which is an old Norm Beachy car, won the Touring Car Championship in 1970. It was really the first Australian car to win the Touring Car Championship, I think.
What do you think this car would have been like to drive in its glory days?
Oh, look, obviously it was one of the best cars in its period, so it would have been awesome. But comparing it now to the local cars, I mean, technology today and the current motor cars with the brakes, the handling, you just can't compare them.
Kevin Barlow, welcome to the Legends on the Gold Coast. This is something a little bit different. It's like a family reunion.
Yes, it is actually. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't raced against some of these guys for 30 years,
You're not racing though, KB.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, thanks for reminding me. Yeah. Demonstrating.
The night, I said, hopefully.
Glenn, how do you technically qualify as a legend? You're actually still racing.
Well, you're probably right. I don't know how I worked into that, but I got the offer and I thought, I'm in there. I'm going to go and drive these old cars because I love driving them, and that's probably more that I drive these days now is historic stuff than actually main game stuff or any modern day stuff.
You're driving the Capri that you made your Bathurst debut in 1983, and it hasn't really changed.
Well, it hasn't actually. Last time I drove this car was actually 84 at Surface. It's the same engine, same gearbox, same diff, everything. Even the tyres yesterday were the same. So today we've got a bit fresher tyres on, which will make it a bit safer. And also got my licence in this. So does Scapey actually, for instance. He got his licence in this car as well back in, that was probably about 84, 83, 84-ish.
So Scapey got his racing licence in a Capri.
That's exactly right. No one else will lend him a car.
Oh, we're learning a few secrets, aren't we? The Pertec Australian Legends, some great old cars, wonderful drivers, aren't they? And some great memories. Aaron Noonan and Mark Larkham.
Matty, this is fantastic. And Larko, have a look at these two cars. This is Pete Gagan's Super Falcon, Alan Moffat's Trans Am Mustang, being driven by Chris and Dan Bowden. Of course, the Bowden family have restored and kept so many of these fantastic cars. But back in 1972 at Easter at Bathurst, these two very cars, these are not replicas, they are the legit car, they raced in potentially what's termed the greatest ever touring car race in this country.
Yeah, look, mate, I mean, I don't know if I can really add much in terms of words. Aaron, I sit and look at these pictures like the rest of the blokes like me in Australia probably are this morning, and I really don't have to say much. But these are iconic cars, and the thing that's special to me, the Bowdens have done a fantastic job of restoring a lot of these cars. These are those items. I mean, I hate to try and put a price on their value.
These are not replicas. These are the legit thing. This is the 69 Coke Trans Am Mustang, the car that Alan Moffat, even 40 years on, still gets emotional talking about, because it was the car that launched him to the icon of the industry in this country that we know him as.
Now, Aaron, I don't want to call you a motor racing nerd, but no one knows more about racing chassis in this country than you do. This car, firstly, its success rate?
Lots. It won in 5 years as a touring car and a sports sedan, 101 races. That's not championship, that's all types of races, from 151 starts. So virtually 2 out of 3. That's not bad.
So in your head, is there any other car at this level that has had similar success since that day?
I think the only other car that could rival it is Pete Gagan's Mustang, which won a couple of touring car championships in the 60s. It was a phenomenal car. But having a look here at Alan Moffat's 1973 touring car championship winning Phase 3. Father French, Johnny French, is behind the wheel today. This is a car that was stolen, would you believe it, the night before the Adelaide touring car round in 1973. A joyrider nicked off with it up to the Adelaide Hills, took it for a burn, left it there. Moffat couldn't find the car the next day and had to borrow Murray Carter's and run from the back of the field.
Well, if you're going to nick one, that's the one to nick, isn't it? I mean, XY GTHO Phase 3, that is iconic in terms of classic car terminology in this country.
And this was, in fact, the car that took Alan Moffat to his first touring car championship. He and Peter Brock had an epic run that year. Brock in the XU1 Tirana. What a glorious car, the Phase 3.
Look at that, just listen to that. Does it get any better? No, it just doesn't.
How good is this? Of course, John French, a winner at the Mountain with Dick Johnson in 1981, and won the very first race in a GTHO at Sandown with Alan Moffat back in 69. And moving forward, the Sierra, the RS500 Cosworth. This has been driven by Chris Hinton. This was one of the DJR Shell Sierras, and they were the best Sierras in the world.
They were, mate, but even at that, Johnny Bauerfeld says of all the cars, and Dick says the same thing, very, very difficult car to drive. High centre of gravity, lots and lots of horsepower, come from a turbo, wasn't highly developed and very difficult to drive.
So it went from a hairdryer 4-cylinder with about 40 horsepower to 640 in about a click of a finger.
Mate, I had a little driver one and really hard work.
Of course, Dick Johnson and John Bowe, Bathurst winners in 1989 in the Sierra. 20 years ago. Seems like it was yesterday. That distinctive 4-cylinder turbo whistling note, it really did dominate there for an era in Group A. Only surpassed really by the big GTR Nissan. Here's a couple of pictures.
Ah, now we're talking. Look at that, look at that. Now, this was 84. Now, this is getting towards the end of the era where the cars were really the big bangers. Big guards, big wheels, big proper race cars, and sheepskin seat covers.
I've been hanging on Dick all weekend about that. You'll see it in through the window. He actually raced it exactly like that in 1984. This car won the championship with Dick behind the wheel, and then was running the endurance races that year. 19-inch rear wheels, and this car replaced, remember the car that ended up going through the greenery of Forest Elbow at Bathurst? This was the replacement.
One of the great pieces of vision of Australian motorsport history. Look at that. I mean, you're seeing Dick in there. That is fabulous.
And that is the legit car as it finished its last race in 1984.
I noticed Dick was quick to say he's 15 seconds quicker around here than Stevie Johnson having a little drive. Now, Steve would have got in that and got the shock of his life. I know Dick said it stops and it goes and all the rest of it, but it'd be hard work, mate. No mistake of that.
Just going by Bo Seaton in the Capri, Jimmy Richards behind in the 635 JPS BMW. Of course, the late, great Frank Gardner ran that team so successfully. And talking to Jimmy yesterday, this is in fact the last of the 635s that he and Tony Longhurst ran.
And Jimmy will be really enjoying this. I mean, Jimmy still competes regularly, and great race driver. Has one of that uncanny ability that not everyone has to jump in just about anything and drive it well. Yeah, look, I reckon he's having a little bit of a crack. He's not happy about this big pup. I reckon the clock's wound back in the brain of these blokes 25 years in a heartbeat. Yeah, a little bit of vigour there. A little bit of vigour.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a go there. Left-hand drive, German thoroughbred. Really did kick off the Group A era, and I'll tell you what,
Look at
as a
that.
kid who grew up watching this stuff, this is spectacular. This is the 1978 Bathurst winning Peter Brock and Jimmy Richards A9X. James Brock is behind the wheel. 31 years on. I tell you what, this is special, this car. Not only being a Bathurst winner, which is special in itself, it won the Triple Crown. It won the Touring Car Championship, Sandown and Bathurst in the 1 year. And fast forward to 2009, and Will Davison and Garth Tander have the same opportunity to win the 2 Enduros and the championship in the 1 year. It's only been done by 2 men on 3 occasions.
And there's one of the cars that did it. Now, Aaron, we're talking about a little story here. So I recall Brock in 79 having a crack at the lap record and getting it on the last lap. But this isn't the car.
No, he did that in 79. This was the 78 car, which he did try it, though. He tried for the lap record, got balked by an Alpha across the top of the mountain, put it in the memory bank and went back 12 months later and sorted it out.
Now, having driven that place, I can't even get in perspective how you'd possibly achieve a lap record on the last. I mean, your car's had it. Outstanding achievement.
Of course, Brock won the championship narrowly over Bobby Morris in 78. The roles were reversed the next year. And this car, as Colin Bond mentioned earlier, it was the first Holden to win the championship back in 1970 with the great Norm Beachy, who of course is a Hall of Famer. He's in the V8 Supercar Grid of Champions and a regular viewer of our V8 Supercar telecasts. And he was a man who paved the way with this car.
Certainly was. And this car is meticulous. Another bout of restoration. I've had a good look at this car. It is beautifully restored. The detail, back to its original authenticity, is there in every piece. It's just magnificent.
And this was Norm's answer, really, to the Trans Am Mustangs and the Camaros and the American muscle cars. He decided, well, I'm going to go to local, built up this 350 cubic inch, 550 horsepower GDS 350 Monaro, and it really became an iconic car, and muscle car fans Australia-wide absolutely love this car, and it's been restored to fantastic condition. Listen to that. You know what, as a kid, having seen all the old films and pictures, only until a year ago I actually heard this car for the first time. That really blew me off my feet.
Look, I just think this is fantastic. I hope we see a lot more of this stuff. This is the core of everything we do today. These guys and these cars have been at the base. Now look at this thing. I was a die-hard Ford fan when this thing, and you remember Bobby Morris crying? Well, there's only one bloke in Australia that was crying hard. That was me.
Bobby Morris behind the wheel of the Ron Hodgson A9X Tirana, the winner of the Touring Car Championship in 1979. Of course, he and Peter Brock had an epic run. Ron Hodgson, such a strong supporter of Bob's career, and they won Bathurst in 76 in the L34 Tirana, but they were a privateer team taking on Peter Brock and the factory Holden dealer team. Yeah, they did a wonderful job.
They did do a great job, but this was a great car. A lot of work. I mean, this is when the manufacturers took their racing really, really serious. A lot of in-house development. These were specially built for racing, these things.
Speaking of specially built, the 9 Sport Chevrolet Camaro with KB behind the wheel. They've actually had a few problems with this car this weekend, though.
They have. I actually bumped into Kevin Bartlett this morning. They'd had a brake master cylinder failure in it. And he said, where the hell do you find a brake master cylinder for a Z28 Camaro, Z29 on the Gold Coast on a Sunday morning? Bingo, we got a call, they found it, and look at that thing. You barely fit 2 cars in the screen there. Look at that. Look at that.
2-time pole-sitting car at Bathurst in 80 and 81 with KB at the helm. Didn't get a result in the great race, but it's a car that everybody remembers. Probably remembers more for it being a Channel 6 Camaro than a 9 Camaro upside down in 82.
Absolutely, and I've got to say, I really like the bloke driving it. I mean, Kevin Bartlett's one of those drivers. He can jump in just about anything. He's driven and been very successful in open wheelers, but he's sort of the gentleman's racer. He knows his race cars, knows racing, understands it, mechanical sympathy for the car, great all-rounder.
Used to have the odd blue with cams about drum brakes and disc brakes.
You'd imagine in that era between him and Alan Moffat, old Cairns boys would have been busy.
The photos were kept hot down in Camberwell in Melbourne. But what a ripper car. He battled Brock in the Touring Car Championship in 1980. But the great goal was winning the great race at Bathurst. Considering this is an American muscle car, it's still looked upon very fondly by the Australian racing public.
I reckon he's battling a left front disc wobble there as well. But I mean, remembering a lot of these cars back then, street circuit racing wasn't a thing. So these are big speeds. These guys have got to pull these big heavy cars up to little second gear corners. I mean, this is hard work for these cars, even at this speed. Oh yeah, look at that.
The wobble. You'll see Bond's name there. He drove with Kevin in 82 at Bathurst, and
There's Bo Seaton in the Capri. A few little dramas there that they're going to put it back into pit lane, but that's, again, we should point out, these are all the original cars. There's no replicas, there's no recreations. They are the real deal.
Well, credit to all of these people that own these cars, because, and Bowden's in particular, because a lot of this stuff in the world sits in museums and never gets raced. These are the real cars. They've been prepared to run them, bring them out on the track, and I think they should be applauded for doing such.
And you and I discussed this over the course of the weekend. You can't put a dollar price on this. It's pretty much priceless.
No, people talk about $1 million each, but I mean, they're just irreplaceable, these cars. And as you can see, there's not 100 of them like in Europe. There's only a handful of these cars in this country that are stepping stones to where we are today.
And that's exactly what that man there, Dick Johnson, said. This was the start of what we enjoy now as the V8 Supercar Championship Series. Don't forget, we're running the Touring Car Championship, or the V8 Supercar Series, for the 50th time. I mean, that's one of the longest running touring car championships in the world, and this man, Jimmy Richards, has formed such a successful and special part of that. So the Pertec Australian legends have added a new dimension this weekend, winding back the clock, reliving some of the golden memories. But stick with us, we'll go racing when we come back. The Mini Challenge on the streets of Surfers.